in the first 2 years, I didn't even get a paycheck. The company lost money. It was fucking tough, right? And we went from 3 million sales year one to 10 million sales to 40 to 105 to 185 to 360 to 520 to 670 in 2021. And we closed in 2022. We're on pace to do 800 million. So we were crushing it and built that literally bootstrap me, like fucking running appointments at the beginning, like doing everything myself and learning. But what I learned along the way is, sometimes you need to raise capital, and I needed to bring somebody in. What they call, gray hair. I had to bring somebody with experience of raising capital. Yep. I wasn't familiar with it. I brought a guy in, Steve Murphy, to be our president. He was in the healthcare business, done a lot of M&A and transactions and capital raising. Brought him in. He was taking our books from cash to accrual to GAAP. He was doing all the things that we needed to do for the listeners out there to be able to raise private equity. And the goal wasn't to sell majority of the company, it was minority, take some chips off the table, but really put some infusion of cash so we can scale.
Well, welcome to the show. As you'll know from my voice, Las Vegas 1, John Cerasani 0 is still the score a few days back. My apologies. So if you hear a cough drop in my mouth or the raspy voice, but the show must go on, my friends. Jayson Waller grew up poor with an abusive childhood. He had no education and was a father in his teens. Today, he's the founder and CEO of a billion-dollar enterprise and has a top 3 podcast called the BAM Podcast. In Own Your Power, he will challenge you to disrupt your self-limiting ideas and start believing in your wildest dreams. I was also intrigued with Jayson's history as a poker player. He has played in the World Series of Poker 4 times at the main event, as well as 1 time at the High Rollers 50K event. Additionally, he is proud that he got to do TV commercials for his companies with his childhood hero, Barry Sanders of the Detroit Lions. He is a pitching expert and prides himself that he did over 200 presentations to private equity and public companies for his solar company and walked away with over 50 offers. My quick math has that at about 25% closing ratio in an area that, is probably under 1% on average. He was about to go public, but an equipment liability failure caused the company to go bankrupt instead. I got to hear this story. Jayson Waller, welcome to 2000% Raise.
Hey man, how are you doing?
Thanks for
good to be on, dude. I'm sorry that your voice is gone though, but we'll get through that.
Brother,
Vegas always fucking wins, dude. They always win.
Yeah. You know what? I actually came back with a bunch of money, but I traded it for my voice. So,
what happens?
Bro. Well, and I got to stay at the Mirage. Dude, I've never stayed at the Mirage before. For those that don't know, Hard Rock just bought the Mirage from MGM. Now, I go to the Seminole Hard Rocks down in Florida a lot. I'm rated there. Dude, they put me up in a nice ass suite. I didn't even know this shit existed, bro. So,
do you play a lot of poker? Because I played at Seminole a few times when I lived in Fort Lauderdale for a little bit.
Well, they got a big ass poker room there, man. They do. Dude, if you get a chance, check it. Don't sleep on Hollywood, Florida. That Seminole Casino is all right for being in the States, ain't it?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. It's good. A lot of good players there too.
Yeah, well, I noticed that fast. They don't mess around there. So, but listen, man, let's start off light. I want to get into your solar energy stuff and a quick Google search of you. I'm proud of you for not hiding from it. There's a lot of local media articles in Michigan that maybe aren't so favorable towards the commentary towards you, but you stood by your messaging and you're going to get a chance to really talk about that with me, with our audience. And I think they're going to learn a lot, even people that don't know anything about it. It's going to be kind of a cool thing, but let's start off light, man. I'm in Chicago. Everyone in Chicago knows the best running back of all time is Walter Payton. Agree or
That's bullshit, by the way. That's bullshit. Okay. It's Barry Sanders.
Tell me why.
Every day. You can't listen. Are you going to say LeBron James is the best, shooting guard or the best player in the NBA because he broke Kareem's record, or was Kareem the best player? Walter Payton is top 5 for sure.
Okay.
Sweeten is top 5. But Barry, they fucking made prime time. That made Chris Berman. Barry Sanders put Chris Berman on the map. People would tune into football because Barry would make 12 people miss and there's only 11 people on the field. He'd make one of them miss twice and then he would score a touchdown. Those are facts. Plus, he's so humble.
Yep.
And if they gave him an extra 2-3 years like Emmett played, I mean, I think no one would have caught that. It'd been over 20,000 yards.
I will give you that. I will give you that. Now, here's the thing. I feel like in Chicago, we like to think. I'm a Barry Sanders fan, and us in Chicago actually do like Barry Sanders, but primarily because he never won any Super Bowls, and we used to beat the shit out of them in those years. I'm like the Packers. Nobody likes Aaron Rodgers or the Packers over here. Barry Sanders, though, we're okay with. I got to tell you, though, we like to think at least when he decided to retire, because if he would have played that next year, he would have broke Peyton's record.
He would have.
Is that the narrative in Detroit?
Yeah, I think, he's actually a friend of mine. He is my childhood hero, but we're actually close friends. We've golfed. He's been on my show twice.
Awesome.
He's been to my house to eat dinner, and we've done 3 commercials together. So one of the best human beings you'll ever meet. And it's awkward when your childhood hero becomes one of your friends. It's like, dude, this is, box check. And, he's doing dinner with your dad. And he was your dad's hero. It makes you feel good. Yep. And, we talked about it in depth as friends about the reason why he retired. And, it is because he didn't have the fire anymore. He did have a relationship with Walter Payton. He wasn't about the record breaking, and they were making a big deal of it. And Barry was the type that liked to stay out of the light.
Okay.
He made comments on my podcast several times as you want to stay in the moment under the lights, but you don't want to be too big for the lights, and you don't want the lights to be too big for you. And those were Barry's words. And I live by that. I love that. But for him, he's uncomfortable with too many lights on him.
Okay.
And that's okay. That's just who he is. Right.
Yeah.
And so he didn't want that. I think that was a partial of it. They traded a couple of his friends. He won't admit that, but I'm sure that played it.
Yep.
And then the team was in a rebuild, and he just didn't have the fire anymore.
Yeah.
He had nothing to prove.
I feel like you guys were always like 4-12, 5-11 all those years he was there. Am I right? Was there any good years?
No, we won. Well, 91. We won the division. We beat Dallas. That big whopping, and then we lost to Washington like 45-10, and they ended up winning the Super Bowl against the Broncos. I think it was in 91 or something.
Yep. Yeah. Well, we just filmed yesterday. I don't know if it'll air before or after this show, but Austin Eckler from the Los Angeles Chargers was on the show. And we were talking about him just being a little guy, but you talk about a little guy at that position. Barry Sanders is the epitome of it, huh?
Yeah, he's my size, and I feel like I'm thick, but I'm short, and this dude Barry's small.
Well, listen, man, let's keep it light too, moving forward here. Tell me about the World Series of Poker, bro. We got a big male audience, we got a big female audience too, and I shouldn't say that. A lot of women play poker nowadays as well, but I gotta tell you, I grew up before frickin' before Texas Hold'em was all over ESPN, before Chris Moneymaker won the tournament and made this a household game. I used to take my friends in junior high and high school, $20 a head, all in, let's frickin' go. Every Friday night I was walking out with $140 because I was the only one that knew how to play. I didn't cheat. Right. I was the only one that knew how to play. They put this shit on ESPN. Now everybody's a frickin' poker expert. That said, you've been to the World Series 4 times. Tell us a good story about it.
I'm not the guy that earned his way there, right? I didn't win one of these fucking satellites. I didn't show up with a backpack and not shower for a week and not brush my teeth for 5 days. Because when you go to the World Series of Poker, 98% of the people in there are those guys.
Okay.
And those guys are fucking killers. Those guys, they eat, breathe, shit, and sleep. We're out there building businesses, spending time with our families. These motherfuckers for 12, 14, 16 hours a day, every day for years. That's all they do is look at cards, but they never got big. They didn't have the personality to be, a Helmuth or an Ivy, right? And I learned that because, you go in and you're like, fucking Phil Ivey and Phil Helmuth are the best players in the world. Daniel Negreau. I've played with like Daniel Negreau. I've played with those motherfuckers aren't the same as those killers that are the nobodies on there. It's just those guys won.
Really?
And I learned that quickly because I went and I paid to play. And the first time I went in, it was like 2015. I was all excited. I paid the 10 grand. I'm like, I'm going to win. I show up late on purpose, right? Like a few minutes late because they have this time that you can join. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to let people get settled, few hands in. Well, they delayed the start. So I'm like, well, fuck, they ain't even started yet. Okay, well, fuck it. I'm going to go sit down.
So you were going to lose your blinds on purpose and not even be there, like a big fuck you.
No, not like that. They usually don't start taking, I mean, you'd lose some blinds, but it's the amount is inefficient, the first 2 levels.
Yep.
So it wouldn't have been anything.
Right.
I did it just to let the table settle down.
Got it.
I was advised the day before I got to meet Phil Hellmuth. He was out there signing his book, talked to him, and he was like, dude, just don't go in early and wear yourself out. You can always go in late. I took that advice, and the next day I'm like, I'm going to go in late. Well, I'm antsy. Hands are fucking sweaty. I'm like, I'm just ready to go. And I'm like, fuck it. They're delaying it. I'm going to the table. So I go to my table and I sit down. And I'm sitting at like the 6th seat, and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden they bring this guy up, George Danzer. He's talking. He's the 2014 Player of the Year. They're bragging about him. They drop this big, thing. They got all the players that have won Player of the Year, in their big picture of them. Banner dropped down. I'm like, oh, that's fucking cool. Guy has a mohawk and shit.
Right.
And he's like, all right, do your cards. And so we're playing. First hand, I get 2 pocket kings.
Oh shit!
And on the fucking flop, there's 2 kings.
Wow, you won.
I won the first hand, right? And so I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, this is fucking fate. I'm texting my wife like, I'm gonna win this whole fucking thing, right? And I'm all excited, and I take a picture, and I end up winning a lot of chips there because I slow played the shit out of it, and then fucking hammered it. And all of a sudden, I'm a chip leader at my table, maybe even mostly in the tournament because I was up pretty quick. About 6, 7 hands in, I'm taking a picture of my chips quietly. You're flexing a little bit. You're excited. And all of a sudden I hear, oh my gosh. Hey, George. And I look up, and George sits in the number 2 seat.
Oh, shit.
And I go, that's the month. So I went and I took a picture of him and the thing. And I texted my wife, said, the Player of the Year just sat at my table. Yeah. She sends me, remember this 2015 before emojis were emojis.
Yep.
She sends me the crying, laughing emoji and goes, you're fucked.
Thanks for the support, honey.
And I'm like, oh my God, this is not good. This is not good. So I then, we played. And what I noticed is, you go in and, what I've learned, and I'm pretty good at, like you talked about meeting Barry Sanders, is when I go into a building or I go into place, I don't give a fuck who you are. It could be Tom Brady, I've met Donald Trump. Doesn't matter who the fuck you are.
Yeah.
I walk in like I'm the king dingling.
Right.
Like, I'm the fucking shit. I'm Mr. Con. You have to, because the moment you become a fanboy, you're nothing to them.
Right.
Nothing. They want none of that. They get douched out. They get bothered. They want you to be at their level. And the only way you got to be at their level is you got to be fucking swagger, walk in confident. So here I am. I'm not, everyone's, oh my God, like taking a picture of him. I ain't giving this motherfucker a picture. He's my enemy right now. I'm going to beat this motherfucker. That's the plan. Like, everyone took the picture. So every time ESPN, this is before they were filming like live or day of, they would film it and then play it in November. ESPN would run over to our table. He would fucking bully everyone and they would fold. So fast forward right now in this hand that I'm in, I'm like second in chips. He's first in chips. And on our table, many people were already like level 3 or 4. Many people have already come and gone.
Yep.
And I get pocket aces.
Okay.
And so I'm like, they come over and I fucking 5-bet it.
Yep. And
then he comes in and, I have an ace of diamonds and like an ace of spades or something.
Right.
The pictures online. I don't remember the exact hand, but and he come and he like, I 5-bet it, because I'm one off the big blind. I 5-bet it goes to him and he calls, right?
Yep.
Nope. He re-raises, check raises. So I'm like, oh, fuck this. So I call his re-raise. He 5-bet it again. Out comes like 2, 4, 7 of diamonds.
Shit.
And I'm like, I got an ace diamonds.
Yeah.
So I check.
Yeah.
He places half his chips in. I immediately, ESPN comes over. Not even a half a second, all in. Like my first buy-in, fucking all in. Motherfucker had 2 diamonds. He comes out and goes, no diamonds. He's German. Boom. Spade come out. Boom. Something else come out. I end up losing. I'm like, motherfucker. He's like, yeah, good hand. Then I'm like, hey, let's get that picture. So I get a picture after I lost, right?
I want to give a quick shout out to my friends at America's Benefits Center in Atlanta. Check them out at americasbenefitscenter.com. These guys know their stuff. They're great employee benefit brokers. They've been around the block. I've known them for a few years now. They're 100% Hispanic owned, bilingual. So any entrepreneurs out there growing your organization, you're getting at that point where you need benefits, or hey, maybe you got benefits and want to look at a different broker, check these dudes out. They're in Atlanta, but they work nationally. americasbenefitscenter.com. Well, let's transition here, man. I want to get into the energy stuff. But before we do that, I'd be doing a disservice to our audience if we didn't talk about your business coaching platform. You talk about your 8 principles that drive success. And I'll just tell you, man, listen, a lot of your messaging, if you look at Jay's Instagram and just the kind of stuff he posts, it's very similar to me. It's a no-nonsense approach, promoting entrepreneurship. But my background, bro, is very different than yours. I went to world-class universities. I got in because I was good at football, but I still have that pedigree behind me with a Northwestern University degree, right? Where you have a very different background. But at the end of the day, what drew me to you, Jay, is we're kind of saying the same shit. Could you tell our audience a little bit about your platform and what you're doing, please?
Yeah. So, with the experience that I've gained, I mean, I didn't go to college. You talked about at the beginning, and I've had to build businesses, from the bottom up.
Yeah.
And true story, in 2016, I didn't even know what the fuck EBITDA meant. Right.
Well,
now, obviously, I know what it is. You mentioned earlier, I did over 200 presentations to public and private companies and equity, and, had over 54 offers for our business.
Can I just say one thing? A lot of people don't know what EBITDA means because I made a freaking reel once making fun of how people say it. They go EBITDA, not EBITDA. EBITDA is how people say it.
Yeah, they say it appropriate. I don't. I say EBITDA.
Oh, exactly. No, I was making fun of people that say it the other way, and it got like 4 likes because no one knew what the fuck I was talking about.
Yeah, well, look. So when I built my first 2 companies were home security companies. So I built a door knocking company that sold home security, and then I built a telemarketing company or prospecting company that sold home security. So 2 of them were home security companies, and then the third one, after I sold those, and I was like, okay, I got to do something that's going to impact the world. And I felt like home security was at the time. I'm like, I really like solar. It's not big in North Carolina where I'm at. It's big in the West Coast of New York. I want to get into solar. And so I had to learn solar. And I knew it doesn't matter what the fuck I could sell. I could sell anything and I could build a business. I just need to learn the product. And so solar started in the first 2 years. I didn't even get a paycheck. The company lost money. It was fucking tough, right? And we went from 3 million sales year 1 to 10 million sales to 40 to 105 to 185 to 360.
Holy shit.
To 520 to 670 in 2021. And we closed in 2022. We're on pace to do 800 million. So, we were crushing it and built that literally bootstrap me, like fucking running appointments at the beginning, like doing everything myself and learning. But what I learned along the way is, sometimes you need to raise capital, and I needed to bring somebody in what they call, gray hair. I had to bring somebody with experience of raising capital. Yep. I wasn't familiar with it. I brought a guy in, Steve Murphy, to be our president. He was in the healthcare business, done a lot of M&A and transactions and capital raising. Brought him in. He was taking our books from cash to accrual to GAAP. He was doing all the things that we needed to do for the listeners out there to be able to raise private equity. And the goal wasn't to sell majority of the company, it was minority, take some chips off the table, but really put some infusion of cash so we can scale. Because by the time we were looking at raising capital and equity, we were only in 2 or 3 markets. Now we were crushing it, but we were only in 2 or 3 markets and we wanted to go bigger.
Yep.
And so we brought this company on out of South Florida, Trivest.
Okay.
And they came in and, they gave us a $50 million valuation in 2018.
Okay.
We're 3 years old and, we're doing well.
Well done.
And I didn't really understand EBITDA to a T yet. And so, they give us this LOI and we're going through due diligence, and what we budgeted, what we forecasted, we were doubling. Right.
Wow.
I was out there, I'm a grower, right? Yep. I'm the type, I know how to do digital marketing. Yep. That's what that's what solar was built on. We spent over $300 million on Facebook and Instagram. I was one of the first guys in companies to do digital marketing.
How much is it?
Over 300 million. 300 million.
What?
We used to spend $10 million a month with Facebook and Instagram digital marketing. I didn't have any door knocking. I didn't have any prospecting. Everything was digital marketing. It'd be authority pages where you filled out an ad. We would call you. We would qualify you. We would send one of our people out to meet you. I had this vision when I opened this company that I want to do things completely different. I don't want to have door knockers because they're grimy. I don't want to have prospecting and telemarketing because you get lawsuits for, do not call list all the fucking time.
Yeah.
I said, I want to do something that's going to be future, live in the future and be able to survive and be cutting edge. I want to do digital marketing. I want people who are on their phones all day to read about solar, to get excited about solar, to click. We qualify, we go see. So we were one of the first companies to do it. In fact, Facebook every month would say we were a top 50 company worldwide spending money with them. So I've got the experience and knowledge of digital marketing, right?
And let me clarify one thing real quick, Jay, just for our audience too. I like to leave gems for our audience. Jay said a couple paragraphs ago, he talked about a $50 million valuation and an LOI going through due diligence, right? Audience, LOI is letter of intent. And what that typically means is that an institution, in this context at least, is here's our intent. We're going to fund your company based on a $50 million valuation. And now we're going to go through diligence to make sure everything, the I's are dotted, T's are crossed. And Jay, if I followed you correctly, in that process of diligence, you found that it's going to be, am I hearing you correctly, that it should be worth a lot more than 50 million because your sales are higher than that?
So we're beating the budget and the forecast completely. Okay. So as we get ready to close, we're like literally maybe 3 or 4 weeks away from closing. I sit down with the attorneys and I go, listen, I want you to educate me on EBITDA completely. And so we draw out a whiteboard. So I want to understand all of it because I feel like the company's worth more than what they're saying. Maybe it was worth that 3 months ago while we're going through due diligence. It's worth more now. So we went through the exercise.
This is awesome, by the way.
It's a true story. Yeah. It's a true story. So we go through the exercise and I come out, company's worth about 80 million. Yeah. And I'm like, we have a problem. So he's like, well, dude, it's called retrade. You have an LOI. You can't fucking do this. I said, dude, I can do whatever the fuck I want. I don't know what any of this means. And you're the attorney. You should have educated me a little bit more on the EBITDA. And I'm yelling at Steve Murphy, who knew better, but he had a financial incentive for us to raise capital because he got equity out of that. Right? So I was like, okay. So we sit down with these guys, great guys, and we end up being partners. But I go to them, I say, listen, guys, this is my bad. I didn't really understand the dynamic of EBITDA. And I didn't understand that we were going to almost double what our forecast said in sales and revenue for the year. So, I know that you guys were very kind enough to, value the company at $50 million. You want to buy 25% of it for $10 million and put it in there. I don't feel comfortable with that. I'm showing the values at 80 million. They immediately, we're all on a call, immediately go, well, you can't do that. That's retrade. Like, we already have a deal. I said, no, we don't have a signed contract. I have an LOI. They go, yeah, but it's the same thing. I said, it's not the same thing. He said, no, it is. I said, well, when I go to buy a house, it's got to go through the process. I can back out. Yeah. And they're like, well, hold on. I said, all right, let me ask you something, Jamie. He goes, yeah. I said, if I was doing half of what the forecast said, not double, if I wasn't hitting the numbers, would you guys be coming to me trying to buy the company for less?
You'd be pulling out of the deal.
Absolutely, we would. I said, well, then here's my offer to you. It is Tuesday. You have till Friday to come back with your best offer or this deal's off the table. I don't need your money. And I hung up the phone. They came back with a $60 million valuation, which we took, putting $15 million in the company. So we got $10 million more valuation, $5 million to the bottom line, which ended up helping. We ended up doing the deal. They ended up 10Xing and then some of their money. Boom. So they crushed it. They did very well. Everyone.
And I'm gonna say something there. And I learned this too when I was selling my company. The first thing my lawyer said to me is, don't sign that LOI if you don't like the parameters. It's heavily frowned upon in this context to pull out of an LOI. Now, if we have any commercial real estate people listening, they might be using LOI in a different context for an office lease or whatever. It's not the same. People pull out of those things left and right. You might be under 3 LOIs at the same time because you're not incredibly ethical, but it happens. In this context that Jay's talking about, you don't fuck with that. You're not
supposed to. It's frowned upon. They don't like it.
Yeah.
But I had to because I felt like it wasn't right. Like, I felt like I had to make the strongest move for our company if we're going to bring partners on.
Dude, you have to. And they, dude, honestly, they probably knew more than you knew at that point, and they might have known exactly what you were agreeing to. I'm like, hey, we got this motherfucker. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And at the end of the day, that ended up panning out. And you go back to the coaching you asked me. So all that experience, we ended up building the company worth over $1 billion.
Awesome.
We started to go, as COVID ended, we went to transaction mode. We wanted to get Trivest bought out. We wanted to do a private deal of less than majority, probably 40 or 45%. And so we went to market. We hired a company called Piper Jeffrey, which is a broker. And we were at market. I was doing presentations every day, 1 or 2 a day, every day. And I had them eating out of my hand because A, we're in a fucking industry that's crushing it. B, our margins, we were fucking doing very well. C, we were growing. We were the largest battery installer in the country. Like, nobody was putting in batteries like we were. And we believed batteries were the future. We're like, we don't want to deal with the utility companies and all their nonsense. We wanted these consumers to have batteries to be able to control their costs and not have to worry about time of use and charge the vehicles. So we had this future evolving strategy as a company for the consumers to really grow with us and be able to create some kind of microgrid or power center at home. And so as we were doing that, all these private companies were like 400 million, 500 million, 400, 600 million. All of a sudden, a couple public companies, one comes over $1.05 billion. We're like, what? And it's public. We're like, hold on. What?
Yeah.
So I'm like, hold on. So then we start talking to them.
So was the public company that was going to buy you guys?
So the first one, there were two. The first one was a SPAC.
Okay.
So they wanted to do a SPAC with us.
Okay.
And this was at the end of 2021. And so we had the LOI from them for $1.05 billion. We're going through the due diligence. When we hit December, me and the gentleman from MGG, that's the CEO of MGG, Kevin Griffin, I said, look, SPACs are taking a beating. I don't really want to do the SPAC. I'm really sorry. I don't think this is going to work. If there's another way. And he goes, actually, there is another way. We have this company that already de-SPACed about a year ago. Their business is dying. It's not a great company. I'm like, what's the company? It's like XL Fleet. They take gas vehicles and they convert them to hybrid for electric. I said, well, that's bullshit because electric vehicles are here. He's like, listen, I get it. He's like, but they could be an arm of your business. They've got about $350 million on the balance sheet. We'll give you the same deal. So they go through the thing. We got Citibank involved, going over everything, and we get the $1.05 billion valuation. We signed the deal in March 2022, and we're supposed to close in July, and we're supposed to basically do a reverse merger. And we were changing the name because we were doing that from PowerHome Solar to Pink Energy, and therefore we could do other things besides solar, including the vehicle stuff and microgrids.
So between March and July 2022, you're under LOI. This is your diligence period. Okay.
Yes. And that's when we find out and all these complaints come out where we had about 40,000 customers and 20,000 were with Generac. We switched to Generac in April of 2020.
And what is Generac?
And they approached us.
And what is
Generac?
Yep.
Generac is the nation's largest generator company.
Okay.
And they're out of Wisconsin. And they bought a company called Pika. And they were now in the renewable energy battery storage. So they approached us because they didn't have any big horses. And they approached us really hard, like, hey, we're a marketing giant in the Midwest. I didn't even know who they were. Then I find out who they were. I'm like, holy shit, they're worth like $7 billion. They're publicly traded. We've never used anybody's name in our marketing. They're like, let us co-brand. We're going to market together. We'll crush the battery market. So we were like,
you know what's funny? Just a funny little tidbit there, man. I never heard of Generac either. When I bought my house in suburban Chicago, during my home inspection, the freaking generator wasn't working. I had people come out to fix the damn thing, and it was a Kohler one. And everyone that came out to fix it didn't know how to fix it because it wasn't Generac. They go, everyone has Generac. You have Kohler for some freaking reason. They're that freaking big, man. That's awesome. And
they're huge, right? And their CEO flew out to see me a few times and was excited about this partnership. And we were like 70 or 80% of the renewable energy, and we kind of grew together.
Okay.
And we had no issues. So we had 20,000 customers before we got with them, but then we're growing. We're in 17 states doing all these things. Now we gained about 20,000 customers with them as we're approaching the end of Q2 or Q1 in 2022. And all of a sudden we get these influx of complaints. I mean, we had an A+, and for listeners out there, to have an A+ for your business with the BBB in every state, in every market, when we were in 51 cities and 17 states, is unheard of. But we had the best customer service in the world, the best service in the world. We were winning awards left and right. I was winning awards. The company was winning awards. We were the darling of solar. All these TV commercials, 5 NFL teams got solar. You name it. It was like, oh my gosh, that's the future of energy.
Wow.
Then we went from 800 phone calls a month and service calls to 3,000. Then it went to 30,000, 800, 3,000, 30,000. We're like, what the hell is, and it wasn't 30,000 customers, just 30,000 calls. So now we had people on hold for 4 or 5 hours. We had to get a new call center. We're adding all these people. We're scratching out what's going on. All these complaints are happening. That nasty report in Detroit happened where that guy didn't even give us an opportunity to talk to him. And 19 of those 21 complaints were Generac related. We found out later. All these things that started happening, we're scratching our heads like, what's going on? And we're calling Generac like, dude, we're having to keep replacing these parts. And, do you guys have an issue? And they're like, oh, it's the firmware. So what had happened is in 2021, we'd never had a fire in any of our customers, never had any issues like that. In April 2021, there was a fire in Kentucky, and the inspector came back and said it was Generac related to this part called a Snap RS. And so we freaked out. And we called them. They're like, well, we've never heard of any issues with that. So then 2 days later, another one happened. And then, so then they gave us an email and said, oh my gosh, we figured out the issue. We put this firmware out that's going to fix it. We're like, firmware? They're like, yes, we're updating all the systems. It won't let them heat up like that again. We said, are you sure? They said, yes. So this is April, May of 2021. Fast forward, we don't really have any more. We don't have any fires. We are replacing these parts and we're calling them like, why are we replacing them? Well, if they heat up, they're probably old. You got to replace them. So we're replacing these Snap RS as we go. But then all of a sudden they did a major update in fourth quarter or early 2022 in first quarter. And all of a sudden over 10,000 of our 20,000 customers with them weren't working, weren't producing. Because what happened was when they send this firmware, it governed the system. It wouldn't allow it to produce. It shut it down without them telling them, partial of their different arrays. So a consumer that thinks they're going to produce $300 of power a month might only be producing $100 of power. They're getting pissed. They're like, these guys told me shit that doesn't work. They're calling us. They're on hold. More complaints are stacking. All of a sudden, news articles are coming out. All of a sudden, fucking the BBB's question. We're like, what is going on? So we got to the bottom of it in April, May, and Generac was like, this is on us. We should have done more due diligence. We're going to make it right. We're going to send the customers a letter. We're like, please do. We've been a great partner. We're sitting here taking shit. It's hurting our brand, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, they continued to dance and do the wrong thing. They sent a half-ass letter. I had multiple calls with their executives, including their CEO multiple times. It's in the complaint in the lawsuit, where he assured us he'd make everything right. We were reimbursing customers for their months that they were down.
Wow.
And Generac was supposed to pay us for that. They ended up sticking us for $81 million in service and reimbursements to customers as we were getting ready to close. And then they kind of just turned their back on us. And so, me and the CEO had a very, very heated conversation multiple times. And, one of them was like, dude, every time I wake up, I'm fighting to keep my company alive because you guys did the wrong thing. You bought the wrong company. You didn't do the due diligence. He's like, Jayson, I'm so sorry. We should have done more. We have all the recordings. We have all of that stuff recorded. So it's not like we're making this up. However, then when it came time to push, the problem was, and let the record show, because there's lawsuits against him, he didn't tell his investors about this problem. He didn't tell his investors about this many failures, which was a 41% fail rate. We have 20,000 customers with them. That means 41% of them have a failure, and eventually it will go to 100%. They said eventually you're going to have to replace all of them. So here we are being from a company that does 800 installs a month to doing 50 to 100 installs a month, and that used to do like 500 service calls a month to doing 2,000 service calls a month. Like, the business model switches. You have this machine, you're bleeding to death. And as we're bleeding, I'm like, Generac, you gotta pay these invoices. And they're stringing us along. Here's a little. And as it heated up, I said, guys, you have to make this right. You have to do this. And they're like, well, we have to go to the board. And I said, well, you should have went to the board for the stuff before. And they said, well, I don't know what to tell you. And I said, well, either you do it, we're going to sue you for $500 million, because we felt like the value, because now the company XL Fleet backed out with all these issues. And we had Aries come in for $400 million. So now we have a valuation of $400 million. So we said, look, we'll sue you for the difference. Now the enterprise difference is $600 million, or you start paying the dues and start talking to these AGs and start being honest with people about your faulty equipment. They said, no, we're not going to do that. So we filed a lawsuit, left them. We actually were getting our sales up, but we ran out of money and ended up closing. And his last words to me, their team's last words to me were, well, this is like David versus Goliath. This is what we do. You'll be in court for years. And I told them, well, listen, a lot of motherfuckers you could throw out of the plane and they're going to be fine. This motherfucker right here, I drag each one of you by your fucking throats. You're not landing the plane safely. If you tell me, I'm bringing all you motherfuckers with me, because I've got the audio, the recordings, the promises, the emails. All you motherfuckers are crooked. You're getting on you're going out, the plane's crashing. You're not going to put my company out of business and take responsibility, think I'm going to walk away. I'm not fucking walking away. And I didn't. And so we filed the lawsuit, and then we were trying to save the company. Sales rep, we changed the product. The BBB gave us our A+ back. Things are starting to happen, but the damage was done. We couldn't have the cash. And me and my partner gave the company several $1 million to stay open. And then we were looking at the barrel of, it would have cost us more, several $1 million. And we were off payroll since April. And it was like, what do we do? So we were advised, like, you got to close. Then we close. And then we were advised, like, all these lawsuits are stacking and we're suing Generac. You might as well file BK. And so now the bankruptcy owns the lawsuit. I won't get anything out of it unless it clears over 200 million, because that's the debt and the consumer's liabilities out there needed. But the right justice needs to be done. Right. Of course it hurts that I've lost $400 and something million worth of equity in a business I had that's gone like poof. And several $1 million I put back into the company. But what hurts me more is the consumers. that are confused, that wanted to go solar, and it hurt the industry and it hurt the brand, and the employees we had to let go. We had 2,200 employees. We had to let all the employees go in tranches as we were trying to save this thing. And that's what's sad. Had they just done a recall, if you had a fucking faulty airbag or seatbelt, you do a recall.
Yep.
This shit was catching fire.
Yeah.
Had they done a recall, none of this would have fucking happened. But so I take all this experience and then I go, okay, I don't want to run a company again. I got PTSD. I got people out there giving me death threats. Guy showing up at my house like, there's a biker gang wants to kill you. It's like, what? And I'm having to deal with this nonsense. My family's scared, all because these consumers are confused. Some of the employees are confused. They feel like I screwed them over personally because I was the face of the company, and it's hurtful and it's sad, but I got thick skin. I can deal with it. I want my family to feel better about it. But I'm like, look, I'm not going to build a company again. What I'll do is invest in companies, but I want to help people. I have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. I've built it from the bedroom all the way to the boardroom. I built it from startup all the way to going reverse merger with $1 billion. I've got the fucking blueprint. I know digital marketing better than any human being on the fucking planet. I've got the blueprint to help companies, help individuals. And I just want to put that in work. And that's why I got the BAM coaching, the business and mindset coaching for that.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And I want to talk a little bit more about that in a second. Let me make a couple comments here, though. I'm glad you used that metaphor with David and Goliath, because as you were telling the story, what I was thinking is, screw them, because you represent a small sliver of their business in this space where this is 100% of your company. So they're not making it right.
So their lawsuit with their investors, now there's a class action lawsuit against them for their investors because they lied about how large their partners are. We were about 70 or 80% of their solar, not their total portfolio.
Solar which represents what of them? Less than 10%?
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. And here we are with you at 100%. You have a relationship with their CEO, and they're just going to watch this happen, where the magnitude of them fixing it is nowhere near the magnitude it is for you of them not fixing it, which just kind of blows, right? Unless they, fundamentally disagree with what you're saying or something. But on the surface of what you just described, that's messed up, right?
Well, and what I think it is I don't think they realized how bad it was. I think that they knew what was happening. They used us as their test dummies and the consumers. They didn't think it was going to fail this bad. They didn't do their due diligence. And then I think they were caught by not getting their investors involved and not getting in front of this. So they slow played it and just said, all right, we'll just have to deal with the damage. And they let us take the fall.
Got it. Yeah, that blows. And you mentioned something else with the biker gangs and you being the face of this whole thing. Yeah, your consumer probably has no idea who they are. They just know you guys, and you're the one who sold it to them. And I got to tell you, Jay, that the Detroit media, at least the articles that I saw, really did turn on you. And anyone that's educated as a business person could look at an article like the one I read, and they're talking about you and executives driving Porsches, and I'm like, motherfucker, you think that fucking $2,000 monthly payment is their problem? You think that's the issue right now? And whenever I see an article like that, I say, okay, how quickly, because you were up here, man. You're an underdog. You built $1 billion organization. You get haters once this happens. And we don't know each other that well, and I haven't done a case study on you, so I'm not really picking sides on this thing. But I could tell you everything you said. You didn't, your high school, you didn't graduate high school barely, and you did all this shit, and you didn't know what EBITDA was a few years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it just kind of.
Well, I go back to, we didn't forget how to sell and install overnight. For 7+ years, we're the darling. We're winning every award, and all of these 40,000 customers, they're not stupid. They picked us. Why did they pick us? They picked us because we had the best ratings. Why did we have the best ratings? Because we had the best service and we always did the right thing. That wasn't like some kind of facade. So overnight, when shit did that, it had to be, at least for smart consumers, to go, holy shit, what happened? Like, this doesn't make sense. I picked them. Why wouldn't they have this problem for years? Why wouldn't they have these complaints for years? Why wouldn't they have these struggles for years? And then you're right. The Detroit media, which loved me, put me on everything. I paid for all these commercials. They love a good story, and it's easy to blame, me as the fall guy. And I get that. And it is sad. But, what else are they going to do until this all irons out? It's a great story. There's pictures of me with Lambos, but just to make it clear, I've built 3 companies. I've done a lot of real estate. And, the funny thing is I made the same money I talked about with Trivest. I made the same salary, except cost of living. So 3 to 5% increase in 2018. when the company was worth 50 million or 60 million.
Yep.
And when it was worth $1 billion, I never increased my salary or distributions. Distributions kept going back into the business to help grow the business. So and I told them in court, they're like, well, you drive Porsches and shit. I'm like, okay.
Wow.
And, I'm like, they're like, well, you made a little over $1 million a year.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was making that in 2018. We were 60 million. We're worth $1 billion. I'm not making 20 million a year.
Yeah.
I'm still making about $1 million a year.
Right.
I don't think that that's a problem.
Yeah.
But these fucking idiot journalists that, get a hard on and want to talk about anything they can, and, they don't have a real good life. Of course they're fucking bothered about it because they can't do it. Right. So that, I don't feel bad for that. Plus, during COVID, the executives went off payroll. During this whole thing, we started laying people off in April. I told our team, we're not going to get paid until we start hiring more employees. As we're letting people go, we're not getting paid. We went off payroll. We continued to do the right thing.
Yeah. And
that should have been a great story.
Yeah.
But it wasn't.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your coaching, man. And I think what's really cool about this conversation with you is a lot of our audience that have been through M&A or sold a company or whatever are following us. A lot of other people are learning a lot with just the vocabulary we're using and the stories we're telling here. But anyone can learn. I didn't know half this shit until I sold my company. You get in these money raising scenarios and you get a PhD in the process. Isn't that right, Jay?
Right. Yeah. Yep.
So tell us where to find you, man. Tell us about your podcast, how the coaching works, and what you're looking to do here.
Yeah. So the new podcast is the BAM podcast. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or YouTube. It's the BAM, the Business and Money Podcast, right? It's real, it's raw, and it's motivating.
Awesome.
Okay? So, it's not going to be, white collar. It's not going to be blue collar. It's somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
Same thing with my coaching, right? So for those out there just starting a business or involved in a business, or you're building a business, or you're kicking ass and you're winning a business, there's always something you can learn. That's what I've learned. You can always have coaching. There's going to be knowledge, whether it's marketing, whether it's a growth mindset, whether it's self-awareness, whether it's building confidence, how to build leadership, how to build teams, how to scale, how to be efficient. I want to help teams do that. So I've got a BAM coaching now where you can go in a group coaching for as little as $300 a month. And you get, go on a call an hour every week. You get access to some of the training modules I'm putting out. You get some access to me. It's not one-on-one, but you get Q&A every week. And you're involved in the group and the community. Or I've got one-on-one where I can only take a certain amount of people on. It's brand new. I just rolled this out a couple weeks ago. I got a couple spots left. The price is a bit more, but you'd have to DM me on Instagram, Jayson Waller BAM, or email me. But that comes out to around $3,000 a month or $24,000 a year, and you get full access to me. You get an hour every other week. You get access to all my contacts, modules. I look at your P&Ls. I look at your marketing strategy. Maybe you're wanting to get into business. You're like, what do I do? How do I scale? How can I start investing in branding and marketing myself? That's what I'm trying to build. So my goal is to get 15, 20 one-on-one clients that I'm working with, hundreds to 1,000 in the group that are being able to pick my brain, and I can use it to help people and get paid for that knowledge, because I've been through it all. I've been through raising capital. I've been through closing. I've been through selling the company. I've been through buying a company. I've been through opening my master bedroom 3 times. Like I've been through all of that, right? So I can bring that to the table. And I'm a no nonsense. I shoot it straight. I'm not going to come in and sugarcoat and say, oh, you got a great fucking business. No, I'm going to say, look, you're broken here and here, and I want to help you. And here's some of the things you got to do.
Boom. Love that. And I love that personal coaching, you're at that 15 to 20 person cap, because that will assure that you're able to give each of those people.
That's all I want, because I want it to be intimate, right? I want to make a difference. I mean, I've made money. I don't need to go make money, but I do want to be compensated to help companies out. It was like, hey, do I want to be a consultant for 1 or 2 companies, or do I want to help people self-improve? Because I've got calls today, and a couple of the guys are in, like one guy's opening a clothing store, a clothing line. That's a brand new startup. He's like, I need help. Another guy's got 2 successful businesses. He's got a solar business and a brick masonry business. He's like, I want to know how to fucking get bigger. So all kinds of people where I can get involved and help. And I get excited about that, because when they win, I win, because I feel like I'm making a difference,
right?
And they get an easier road to hit to get to the next level.
Boom. I love it, man. I love it. I love your energy. I love your messaging. Everyone look in the show notes. You'll see his Instagram on there as well. And this guy has some good ass messaging. I love your one about, if you want to be an entrepreneur, get ready to make less money than everyone else when you're starting off. Why? Because all that money should be dumped back into the company. I love that message, brother. So let's leave it at this. We ask all of our guests this. Jayson, recommends what movie to the 2000% Raise audience?
Four Brothers. It's one of my favorite movies. I'm all about
dude,
loyalty.
Mark
I love Four
Wahlberg,
Brothers.
bro.
And Mark Wahlberg's been on my show and he's my boy. So of course I got to go there. But
Love it.
yes, that's the movie. That's still one of my favorites. That and Young Guns. But I'm all about loyalty.
Young Guns is good, man.
Partnership, leadership. Friends. Like to me, that's important. And I don't like to win alone. I like to win in a group. Right. I also like to lose in a group. I don't like to lose alone,
bro.
So you want to. I like to surround myself with winners and not losers. And that's a big deal.
Love it. Four Brothers is a great one, man. I feel like it's underrated. Whenever that's on the TV, I gotta stop and watch it. We had Sugar Ray Leonard's son on this show before. We talked a lot about The Fighter with Mark Wahlberg. So that's our second Mark Wahlberg movie. Thank you for joining the show. All right, we're bringing our second guest, our bonus guest on the 2000% Raise now, and I'm excited about this. I kind of went back and forth in my head because Jeremy Gardner has a lot to talk about, but I thought putting him on this is going to expose him to an audience that he may not have been exposed to before. And gosh, I just got a lot of questions for this for this guy in this crypto world. But let me give him a little bit of an introduction first. It's been a wild ride for Jeremy. By 25, he was a multi-millionaire taking the crypto world by storm. But the attention all proved too much. His wealth plummeted by 90%. And he spent the last 4 years in relative hiding. But we're lucky to get him today. He's out of hiding. Now Jeremy is on a mission to use his platform to normalize self-care for men, and would love to dive into a conversation about it. And that's what we got him here for, man. Jeremy's been in Forbes, Luxury Guide, Beauty Consultant, GQ, and Women's Day. And, where do we start? Jeremy Gardner, welcome to 2000% Raise, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So, Jeremy, when I first read your bio, this is a bio that came from your team. Not too many people are out there flexing the fact that they lost 90% of their net worth. But I guess that gives you credibility in the crypto game. It shows you've been around the block. Could you talk to us about this?
Oh yeah. I mean, my wealth went down 90% multiple times, but fortunately, it always came back up. I'm at a point now where I'm so diversified where it really just doesn't. The downturns in the crypto market don't affect me. But, early on in my career, I was all in on crypto. That's where pretty much all my wealth was held. And that's something that you have to live with when you're a believer. But these days, I'm nicely diversified and, have a lot of investments outside of that realm.
Good for you, man. And maybe just educate our audience a little bit. Like the people in my age demographic that maybe built our wealth the old-fashioned way, right? Where we didn't get rich overnight on crypto blowing up. And I don't know enough about your background to know where you started off at, but kind of, give us some real, insight. You know what I mean? We hear about these people that, I came in at 10 cents and now it's worth, $900 and I had, 1,000 shares. I mean, are these true stories of actual people? Like this really does happen.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, if you look at where my wealth came from, part of it came from my first startup, which was quite successful. But a lot of it was like, I just was such a big believer in crypto that I was taking rent on my house in crypto from my other tenants. I would pay for bills with my credit card and people would pay me back with crypto. And for a long time, like when Ethereum first launched, the second biggest blockchain, it was 70 cents a token. Now it's $2,000. So imagine if I'm getting paid a few $100s a month or a couple $1,000s a month in rent at an Ether at, $1 or $2 a token, and now it's worth $2,000. It's very easy for that to turn into a lot of money in a fairly short period of time.
Wow.
But it wasn't, it's funny. Like I made some good investments, but really it was really about that like conviction and accumulation. Like I rarely had more than like a few $1,000s in my bank account because I kept enough to, pay my rent, pay for food. Most of my other expenses in life were covered because I was speaking at conferences. I was always getting, I had most expenses covered and I lived very frugally. And so, that was a choice I made. I was a multi-millionaire for years before I spent money on anything besides like investing in startups. Like I think it was 4 or 5 years before I bought a car, and before that, and that was just because I moved to LA, and before that, my most expensive belonging was my iPhone. So people say, "Oh, it was easy," but you had to have that conviction, and I always ran that risk of my wealth going to zero or dropping 90%. So people were like, "Oh, if I had just owned Bitcoin, I'd be rich right now," and that's bullshit. The fact is, crypto may have gone up 100 or 200% and you would have sold. You wouldn't have had the conviction to keep on holding and wait for it to go up, 80, 100x. I mean, that takes, is called, what do they call it? Diamond hands in crypto. Most people do not have that level of conviction. People sell, they buy a car and they go buy a home. And then they're like, oh, why did I sell? But I've met a lot of people over the years, and most people sold too early, or they sold when they were down. And so it can look easy from the outside. Then they say, oh, this kid just made his money in crypto overnight. But most people I know that were in crypto in 2014 do not have a huge amount of money now. It's hard to maintain that conviction.
Gotcha. And the one that everyone's familiar with, right? The most part is Bitcoin. And in 2014, what was Bitcoin? What did that cost? Roughly.
So when I got in, it was about $1,000. That was my first downturn. So it dropped 80% within 3 months of me getting into Bitcoin. So it went from $1,000 or $1,100 down to like 150, 200. And so, that was my introduction. And, it was very formative.
Wow.
But at that time, I didn't even own any Bitcoin. I started an educational nonprofit. And that's how I kind of came to prominence in the crypto space, was that I started an educational nonprofit that brought young people at colleges around the world and helped them set up their own Bitcoin clubs. We went from starting with 3 chapters to over 100 chapters in 20 plus countries on every habitable continent in under 3 months. And so, but all my money went into that nonprofit. I wasn't making money from that. I've never made a penny from that. But it gave me credibility in the industry. It got me offered to speak at conferences. I started to get paid to speak at conferences. As a result of that, I got paid in crypto. But I lived through a lot of roller coasters. And it was really, for me, it was never really about the money. I really believed in this new economic system, and I still do to a certain extent. But I think I was a lot more naive at that age.
Wow. I'm just doing the quick math in my head here, and I'm thinking about me buying. I bought a few Bitcoin, literally a few. I think about four and a half Bitcoins at like 38,000. Then it went up to like 60, and now it's at like 24,000. But those that's volatile. But you talk about getting in at 70 cents of something that goes up to $2,000. I mean, get your calculator out. We're not talking about, 100% gains here. We're talking about thousands of tens of thousands of percent gains. And Jeremy, for you to have that conviction, I really like how you characterized that, because you're right. Most of us would have looked at that and, let's say you got, just use easy numbers, say you got 50 grand into that thing, and that 50 grand turns into 500 grand at some point. Most people are taking 400 grand of it off the table. Let's see what happens with the other 100. You know what I mean? It sounds like you just kept letting it ride. Good for you, man. That's incredible. That's incredible, man.
Yeah. Well, and I was in a unique position. I was in my mid-20s. I had no liabilities. I didn't have any debt. I dropped out of school. This was my career. And so for me, I would rather maintain that conviction when I really believed it would be worth so much more that take those winnings. But most people don't do that. And that's one thing that's hard to appreciate in retrospect.
Gotcha. And with the platform having their problems right now, do you think that's going to have damage to crypto in general?
FTX. Yeah. Monumental damage. The past year in crypto has been the worst year in the history of the industry. Just as the industry gets bigger and bigger, and the asset class becomes more and more valuable, the implosions and the failures get bigger and bigger.
Yep.
And what happened with FTX was such a colossal fuck up that it set the industry back 2 or 3 years. I mean, it makes me glad that's not where my energy is focused, because it really seems at times, it's easy to get disillusioned that the industry just doesn't learn its lessons. And do I think it marks the beginning of the end for crypto? Absolutely not. But it's the biggest setback this industry's ever faced.
So are the regulators going to have to respond to it in a way that makes the general public feel safe or feel like there's some integrity to it, right? So the whole banking industry, right? The banks are allowed to lend out more money than they actually have. So we need to have faith in the system that everyone's good for this, right? So Americans as consumers, if you lose that faith in any system, which the FTX debacle is possibly making us do, right? Are the regulators going to come in and, reinforce that integrity? Or are they going to say, screw you and you crypto motherfuckers, we didn't like you in the first place, let it all die?
No, it's 100% happening. Okay. And there's a massive clampdown right now. Even exchanges that have like Kraken, Gemini, Coinbase that are US domiciled have operated for years. Coinbase is coming on a decade. Never had a hack, never lost consumer funds or data. They're paying the ramifications for this sketchy offshore entity. Yeah, and it's a travesty and it's a shame. But yes, it's an inevitability. I mean, we did, for me to believe that crypto would be where it is from a regulatory and legislative standpoint, it's a testament to what a good job we did with lobbying, with educating regulators and lawmakers. I mean, I spent a lot of time on Capitol Hill. But once again, this FTX debacle and the other recent implosions in the space, it's going to be an uphill battle maintaining, laws and regulations that are on our side. I mean, but at the same time, big banks commit a lot of fraud too, and they break a lot of laws also, and cause people to lose money. And so, it's apples to oranges, but it's not that different. But what they have is the revolving door. They have this regulatory capture that crypto doesn't have.
Right. No, I think there's definitely some parallels you could make in that with that comparison. I like that you did that there. You know what's funny though? You referred to FTX as this, corrupt offshore entity, and you're an industry insider, right? And that's how you categorize it. And a year ago, they're in freaking Super Bowl commercials, and they were like, the equivalent of like freaking JP Morgan to people.
I mean, they signed a 10-year, naming rights on the Miami Heat Arena.
Right.
There were most international airports all over the country.
Yep.
And you saw their name.
Yep.
I don't know anyone personally that had money in them. They didn't have any investors that I'm close with. I don't know anyone that lost money with them. It just like, they were given free rein to market. Yep. Talk about regulatory capture. What SBF, the founder, did.
Yep.
He was. I mean, they were donating to so many members of Congress. They were spending all this time on Capitol Hill. They did a lot right. If you are going to be breaking the law, they broke the law well.
The best is when the founder was in the Bahamian jail. He's like, "Come get me in the Bahamas," asking if he could just stay there. No, dude, You're going to the pen, buddy. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, thanks, Jeremy.
No. He hated the Bahamian jail.
Oh,
that's why he agreed. He was fighting extradition. He spent 3 days in jail in the Bahamas and decided to come back to the U.S. to face trial.
Oh, is that how it went down? Okay. I just heard the Bahamas jail thinking, there's worse places to be. People that know me know I'm a big, big, big proponent of the Bahamas. Knock on wood, I have not spent any time in their jails. So, he's probably right on that. Actually, you know what? I'll just take his fucking word for it. I'm not going to go find out. All right. So my next Bahamas trip will be jail free like the last 30, hopefully, knock on wood. Listen, man, you got a lot to offer. I want to keep this segment kind of short and sweet to the point, but let's talk about this, brother. You talked about how you're diversifying now, and your net worth isn't going to fluctuate with the crypto market because you're in a bunch of other things. And one of the things on your resume that you seem to be pretty proud of, that's getting a lot of your attention right now, is skincare. Could you tell us a little bit about what you're doing there?
Yeah, so being on TV and in magazines back in the day a lot, I was always really dismayed by the state of my skin. I tried to, develop a skincare regimen, but all the men's products out there, they were like these 5-7 step regimens, and I barely remember to brush my teeth, and my skin wasn't getting better, and so I was really frustrated and almost gave up. I was ready to wear makeup just to make my skin look better, because whenever I went on TV, they put makeup on me. I looked great.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I had a moment of insight, looked at the back of all the bottles that I had building up in my bathroom. I realized they all had the same ingredients in them, with like one or two key different differentiators. And I realized that you could most likely take every component of a proactive skincare regimen, pack it into just two, high quality products, and get the same results. And after speaking to a bunch of dermatologists and chemists, we all, I came to that conclusion that it was possible, and that's how Made Man was created. And it just seemed like this great tool for starting a conversation about modern masculinity and just allowing men to, develop an easy to form new habit that's positive for their lives, which then can set the foundation for other good new habits.
Awesome. And are you selling it through retail or direct to consumer? How are you getting the product out there?
So right now we're like in some boutiques and spas, mostly via e-commerce. We're getting on a couple of different airlines right now. The problem with retail is it's just so difficult. The supply chain management, actually getting people to go into a store and buy men's skincare. Most men don't want to do that.
Yep.
So we're kind of figuring it out slowly but surely. It's been iterative.
Yep.
I spend a lot of my time also on investment matters and running my venture funds. And so, I've tried to scale the business up slowly because, but nobody's made men's skincare work before. There's never really been a truly successful brand in this space. And so trying to take an iterative approach.
Awesome. You're looking to change that, man. That's incredible. I love it. So Jeremy, how about some advice, man? If we got any listeners right now that are maybe first time entrepreneurs, or maybe some people that are dabbling in angel investing, you have quite the resume when it comes to your angel ventures and your early stage VC stuff. Any advice you could give our audience before we let you go?
Yeah, well, I think a trend in what I've spoken about, both of the skincare stuff and the crypto stuff, is like persistence is key. Like retaining your conviction, willing to like deal with adversity and take it head on and just keep on going. That's like 90% of the success in startups and in investing. It's just retaining your conviction, obviously not being stubborn and letting your views to changes, you receive new information and learn more. But, you should never pay attention to the price or to the sales or what other people have to say. If you have a thesis, that hasn't changed. So like, when people ask me about Bitcoin or Ethereum's price when it goes down, I'm like, well, has the technology changed? Is the actual, are the use cases, or are they dead? Or has the price just, gone down? And the price has just gone down. It doesn't affect, my conviction in my investments or my ventures that I'm building.
Yep.
And so, you have to be adaptable. And you just have to be willing to look crazy. And if you're not, you're probably not going to make it.
Well, you heard it here, everybody. To simplify that advice right there, the retention of your conviction. And we're talking to a guest right now that watched something go from 70 cents up to $2,000, and it didn't happen overnight. It was on the way there. Hold, because he had that conviction. Jeremy Gardner, thanks again for coming on the show, man. You've been a great addition to 2000% Raise, brother.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
And that wraps up another episode of 2000% Raise. Thank you for listening. The best way to support our show is by leaving a rating or review on all platforms you listened on. And of course, by following, liking, or subscribing. Visit us at 2000percentraised.com or at John Cerasani on TikTok and Instagram. And of course, my YouTube channel at John Cerasani's 2000% Raised. Find all the ways to follow today's guests in our show notes. Thank you for being a part of our entrepreneurial journey.